Life Unrehearsed, brought to you by Caregiver Crosswalk, Dementia Care Consulting. Never roam alone.
And good afternoon. Welcome to Life Unrehearsed. My name is Matt Delvecchio, specializing in life transitions, downsizing in the senior living industry.
And I'm Corey Sirota, clinical social worker and psychotherapist, specializing in grief and loss.
Coming right up on the first half of today's show. Ever wonder what it's like to be part of the Montreal Symphony Orchestra? Well, you're about to find out. We have Andrei Malashenko, timpanist at the MSO. He's on the line, and we're going to talk to him soon. Corey, just before that, you have a very important workshop coming up, don't you?
I do. We are offering through Myra's Kids Foundation, we are offering a Understanding Childhood Bereavement. It's directed at mental health professionals, although truthfully anyone can come. Of course, it's online, it's virtual, and it's going to be held March the 5th. I think I'm going to post the information on our Life Unrehearsed Facebook page. That said, I understand you're also presenting.
I am, and your presentations, Corey, are great. I've seen many of them. And yes, actually, my wife Stephanie and I, this Tuesday, are presenting to the Rotary Club of Montreal Tuesday evening about downsizing and senior living trends. It's really interesting times for a lot of people, particularly this time of year. And folks are some of them just staying put, staying in their homes. Others are saying, you know what, I'm going to cash in on selling the house that we've owned and don't have a mortgage anymore, and looking to downsize. And there are others that simply, due to increased care levels at home, they don't have a choice, and that's much more challenging. But we're going to be tackling all those at the Rotary Club.
And as you have demonstrated so many times before, your sessions are also very informative, important, and well attended.
No, thank you very much. You know, and as we try to navigate sort of our new world here live, where we're trying to minimize people in the studio here at CJD, so you're at a home studio. We're just trying to work out all the bugs, but we're looking forward to it, and we're looking forward to the second half. What do we have, Corey?
Oh boy, we are going to be getting into the mind of the internationally acclaimed mentalist and hypnotist Spidey. He's going to be joining us after the 4:30 news.
Can't wait for Spidey. That one's going to be quite interesting. And talk about interesting. You know, the Montreal Symphony Orchestra was founded in 1935, Corey, and it's known throughout the world, of course. And we thought it would be interesting to get behind the scenes and have a conversation with one of their musicians. Well, we're very proud to have Andrei Malashenko, timpanist at the MSO, on the line. Andrei, welcome to Life Unrehearsed.
Hey, Matt, how you doing, man?
Doing well. Thank you for joining us here. And so,
pleasure.
You know, full disclosure here, when Corey and I were doing a little research for this segment, I mentioned I might know someone. Believe it or not, Andrei and I played peewee hockey together. He was a heck of a hockey player at the time, Andrei.
You were the best ever, man.
And honestly, we hadn't seen or talked to each other since then. That's over 40 years ago. And we ended up connecting on Facebook a little while ago. We had a great phone conversation just last week, in the first time in those 40 years. And it was like we never missed a beat. It was so great to catch up with you, Andrei. And I was really happy for your success at the MSO. And I was amazed at everything a musician does to be at this elite level. So, Andrei, let's kick it off. You ready?
All right, ready.
Okay, first of all, what is a timpanist?
I get that question a lot. So picture yourself, you're looking at an orchestra on stage. And at the back of the orchestra, you see 4 big golden or copper drums. Mm-hmm. So these drums are called timpani, and they're part of the percussion family. And the person that plays them is called the timpanist. And if I can, I'll describe the drums to you a little bit. You good?
Yeah, let's hear it.
Okay, so it's a large copper bowl that's hand-forged by a coppersmith, no machines. The bowl sits in a frame, and on top of the bowl you have a skin that's stretched over it. It's a tuned instrument, which means you can play different notes, and you change the note by stretching the skin, which is attached to a foot pedal. And on each drum you have around 10 different notes. So altogether, with 4 drums, you're working with around 40 notes. So you can actually play tunes on the drums. And to get a sense of what timpanis sound like, you just think of the music from the movie 2001, A Space Odyssey. At the beginning of the film, there's this huge timpani solo. And if I had any kind of singing voice, I would sing it for you, but I think it's better to Google it.
Okay, fair enough. We will do that. But I want to know from you. You went from hockey player to musician. How did that happen?
Well, let's see. My earliest memory is going to the kitchen and getting a couple of those long wooden spoons that you mix spaghetti with. And then step 2 was going to the laundry room and getting the laundry baskets, turning them upside down, and beating on them. That's how I started. Then came toy drum sets, and a little later I started drum lessons, which I did on and off through high school while I was playing hockey. In grade 11, when it was time to choose what to take in CJET, I was kind of like, I didn't know really what to do. I was kind of lost. And then my mother said, you should become a musician. And at that moment, life made complete sense to me. It was like I found my oxygen. Mm-hmm. So I studied percussion at Marianopolis. I did my undergrad at McGill, and I finally specialized in timpani at University of Montreal. From there, I went to New Zealand and played 4 years with the New Zealand Symphony Orchestra. I then came back to Montreal and eventually won the timpani job at MSO, which was really one of the happiest days of my life because those thousands and thousands of hours in the practice room paid off in a really an amazing way.
Just love hearing that story. And you're listening to Life on Rehearsal with Matt and Corey, and that voice is Andrei Malashenko, timpanist at the Montreal Symphony Orchestra. And it is no easy task to actually go through the audition process. And you got that job as timpanist at the MSO. Congratulations on that. And
thanks, man.
Really special. Really special.
It was an amazing day of my life. I mean, that culmination of work to get that job was just amazing. And in my home city. That's hard to beat.
Fair enough.
Just bonus, literally thousands of hours coming down to minutes and seconds in the audition. So good for you. Now let's talk a little bit about the MSO. Things have changed, I guess, but how many concerts would you typically perform in a year?
Okay, so pre-pandemic, we're asking?
Yeah.
Okay, so usually we perform over 100 concerts a year. I would say like around 125. Yeah, there's a lot. And we do concerts for children, we do morning concerts, we do afternoon shows, evening shows, and in the summertime we play a lot of outdoor shows.
So 125. I'm amazed.
Yeah, it's a busy schedule, man. You're working a lot.
Well,
okay. So speaking of which, I would imagine there's tons of practice that's involved in that. How many hours of practice is that?
Well, there's 2 types of practice actually. There's orchestral practice, and then you have the individual practice. So let's start with orchestral. So every week we play a different program which consists of around 2.5 hours of music. So as an orchestra, we'll practice around 3 full days from 10 till 5, and then we'll play the show 2 or 3 times. Then there's the individual practice. So the days that I work, I'll do an hour on my own, and the days off, I'll practice like 2 to 3 hours a day.
Unbelievable. It's just nonstop. We're talking with timpanist Andrei Malashenko from the Montreal Symphony Orchestra. You do a heck of a lot of concerts, as we just heard.
Welcome back to Life on Rehearse. I'm Corey Sirota, along with my co-host Matt Del Vecchio, and we are talking to Andrei Malashenko. He's a timpanist at the Montreal Symphony Orchestra. And I'm not going to put you on the spot and ask you what song that was, but I will tell you that I took it from the internet. And it is the Montreal Symphony Orchestra playing it.
I don't know if you could hear him. He rattled it off. Yeah.
Oh, you knew exactly. Well, there you go. Okay, you win. Okay. Well, so it's such a beautiful experience to witness the Montreal Symphony Orchestra. First of all, listening to it, of course, but witnessing it. I want to know what the strangest or most unique show you've ever done is.
Okay, well, first, I have to give our management a lot of credit for being amazingly innovative during the pandemic. They have come up with a lot of great ideas to keep us performing for our public, which leads to your question. So one idea was this outdoor concert which took place in the Trudeau Airport parking lot. And the setup was exactly like going to a drive-in movie. You parked your car in a space, only instead of a movie, you were watching an orchestra perform on an outdoor stage. And for the sound, you would tune into a FM station, or, of course, you could stick your head out the window. So instead of looking at people, for the first time in 30 years, I walked on stage and saw 500 parked cars, which was it was really weird. But the concert was really successful, and the usual clapping was replaced by honking horns and flashing lights. It was amazing. It was really great to do it. But weird.
Very cool and weird. It must have been.
Totally.
And I've heard some people that have been there that talked about that. That must have been really special. Just along those lines, Andrei, how is the MSO handling distancing protocols? Because we're talking like how many musicians typically in a concert here?
Well, usually, it really depends on the orchestration of the piece, but usually you're talking around 85 people. However, during the pandemic, the way we're around 65 people on stage, it's a regular orchestral setup in terms of where the instruments are. However, we're all at 2 meters apart, and everyone that doesn't play a wind instrument is wearing a mask at all times.
So that said, that's how you're setting up. I'm wondering, how do the indoor concerts work with people? Are they able to attend, to sit separately? How do they watch a concert?
Well, these days, the hall is empty, obviously, but we are taping concerts that you can find on the orchestra's website, osm.ca. And the way it works is basically the film producer presses record, and we play the entire concert as if it were a live show. So there are no retakes, no edits, nothing. So it's got to be perfect.
That's incredible. So you really are seeing a live concert virtually in this new world. And that's Andrei Malashenko you're listening to. He's a timpanist at the Montreal Symphony Orchestra. Timpanist being, as Andrei explained to us, is kind of like the kettle drums, if we're not mistaken, right, Andrei?
That's exactly it. It's either timpani or kettle drums, whatever you want to call them.
He's the guy in the back of the orchestra with the big gold drums. That's where you identify him.
Right. That's it.
There has been some major news in the MSO recently with the new music director, Rafael Payare, replacing Kent Nagano. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, first I want to say that Kent Nagano did a lot of amazing things for the orchestra and for the city, and it's always great working with him. I'm really, really happy with the nomination of Rafael Payare. He's a great musician. He's really fun to work with, a lot of great energy, and we already have an amazing chemistry with him. So I'm really looking forward to the future. It's going to be a lot of fun.
That's sounds terrific, and I love your energy about this. So I'm also curious about...
Sorry, go ahead.
Your energy is there. It's so clear. I'm also curious about what's the process about picking the music to perform?
Well, the way it works is we have OSM has a program director who works with the conductor, and together they choose the music for the entire season. And it sounds simple, but it's difficult because it's basically a balancing act. You're trying to give everyone a little bit of what they want to hear. So that's how it's done.
And just along those lines, so you get what you'll be playing for in advance. I'm interested in how you personally prepare for that, and what's the rehearsal process like? Whenever there's a new piece that you've got to perform.
So if I've played the piece before, what I do is I just review the tricky sections of the piece before the first orchestra rehearsal. I do that on my own. If I've never played the piece, then what I do is I get a recording of it, I listen to it with my parts. Then I find the difficult passages that I need to play, and I practice those. And then we play it, I do it with the orchestra, we rehearse it with the orchestra. Sometimes I start practicing a piece a month before our first rehearsal. So it really depends on how difficult my part is. But basically, orchestra rehearsals are meant to put the piece together and not for learning individual parts. That's basically rule of thumb.
Okay, just out of curiosity, what is your favorite music?
Composer or music in general?
I'm going to say yes.
Yes. Well, I listen to everything. I listen to, I'll have a day where I listen to classical piano. I'll have another day where I'll listen to just symphonies. And the third day, I'll listen to heavy metal.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah, I think it's important to listen to everything, really. So that's basically my taste is all over the place.
And nice to hear. That's Andrei Malashenko, timpanist at the Montreal Symphony Orchestra here on Life on Rehearse with Matt and Corey. We're going to wrap it up here, Andrei. What's next for the Montreal Symphony Orchestra and yourself?
Well, we're continuing to tape a lot of shows, and hopefully sooner rather than later we'll be able to get in around 250 people into the hall. We'll see how it goes, but that's what we're all shooting for soon.
That would be nice.
You and I both.
Yeah, it would be great. We really miss our public a lot, a lot.
I would imagine you feed off the energy.
Totally.
Just like our Habs needed last night.
I didn't see the game. Did they win?
Oh, no, they lost.
They're doing great, though. You got to give them credit.
You got to give them credit. Is right. They got a good team this year. Well, Andrei, thank you so much for joining us here on a Sunday. So informative, and wish you the best of luck this year with the Montreal Symphony Orchestra.
Thank you. It was my great pleasure. Take care.
All right. Thank you. That's Andrei Malashenko, timpanist at the MSO. Corey, what do we got coming up on the second half? It's going to be interesting.
Yes, it will. We're getting into the mind of Spidey. He's the internationally acclaimed mentalist and hypnotist, and I cannot wait to have that discussion.